Just over a decade ago, our lives were completely transformed by a single small device. For many of us, it's the first thing we reach for in the morning. It entertains us when we are bored, and we just about have a heart attack when we can't find it. Chances are you have one in your pocket right now. Today, we must examine the impact of the cell phone and how it affects our connection with the people around us. In recent years, cell phones have evolved from a new and more effective way of communication into an obsession, an addiction, and an epidemic. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines an epidemic as an outbreak of disease that spreads quickly and affects many individuals at the same time. There is no denying the fact that our phones are essential in our daily lives, but we cannot ignore the consequences of constantly being connected. It is time that we disconnect and evaluate the cell phone epidemic by applying the Rotary four-way test. American science fiction novelist Frank Herbert once said, "Technology is both a tool for helping humans and for destroying them." This is the paradox of our times which we are compelled to face. So first, we must face the truth. It is true that our society has been infected by the cell phone. Our phones have not only become an important part of our lives, but they have also begun to take a negative toll on them. When the iPhone was first released in 2007, 76% of Americans owned a cell phone, as reported by Pew Research Center. Today, in 2019, 95% of Americans own a cell phone. There is no denying the fact that our phones are a helpful tool in our daily lives, but our society has become infected. In fact, Apple shares that the average iPhone user unlocks their phone 80 times per day. Users are checking their phones between 6 and 8 times per hour. The truth of the matter is that in such a short amount of time, many of us have allowed a small device that fits in the palm of our hand to take control of our lives. Next, we must consider if the cell phone epidemic is fair to all concerned. And quite frankly, our use of the cell phone as a society is unfair. Our phones have become such a part of our lives when we are in this era where we value capturing moments and sharing them on social media over actually living these moments with the people around us. Business Insider reports that on average, we will spend approximately 5 years and 4 months of our lives on social media alone. As we continue to spend more and more of our time online, the cell phone epidemic becomes more evident, and our interactions offline become less important. Our cell phone epidemic is not fair to our friends, our families, and to ourselves. It is only fair to all concerned that we take a step back and consider our priorities. Instead of living our lives through our phones and on social media, it is time for us to truly live in the moments around us. It is clear that limiting the use of our phones would allow us to build goodwill and better friendships. But currently, instead of building these valuable connections, the cell phone epidemic is destroying them and is taking a toll on our friends and our families. Time magazine reports that almost half of parents say they feel less connected to their families when technology is present, even when they are spending time together. I have experienced this disconnect in my own family recently. This past Christmas at my grandparents' house, my grandma got out a basket, and she asked us to all put our phones in it. Now, even I was a little skeptical at first, but when we all put our phones away, something really strange happened. My family was actually able to connect and listen to each other. Now, I know the idea of taking the time to talk to people can seem a little weird these days, but when we all put our phones away, it was just a great experience for all of us. And we have continued this simple gesture of just putting away our phones, and it has made all the difference. Our cell phones has become an epidemic of how we use them, and it is not fair to our friends, our families, and to ourselves. It would allow us to build goodwill and better friendships if we just put our phones away and listen to the people around us. Lastly, we can see that limiting the use of our cell phones would be beneficial to all concerned. With 95% of Americans owning a cell phone, we should all be considering the effect this epidemic has on us. Today, it is so easy for us to get caught up in the digital world, but putting down our phones would allow us to connect more with the people around us. In moderation, our phones do allow us to communicate with each other more effectively. But like any disease or addiction, our reliance on our phones is unhealthy and is destroying our goodwill and friendships, which is certainly not beneficial to all concerned. As it currently stands, the use of our cell phones as a society has become an epidemic, and it fails the Rotary four-way test. It is the truth that the use of our phones has become an unhealthy obsession. It is not fair that we are allowing our phone use and social media to take a negative toll on our lives. Putting down our phones would allow us to build goodwill and better friendships. And spending more time with our friends, our families, and getting involved in our community would no doubt be beneficial to all concerned. The cure to the cell phone epidemic could not be any more simple. Instead of spending our lives looking down at our phones, it is time for us to disconnect, look up, and listen. Only then will we be able to truly live in the moment with the people around us. Thank you.